Have you ever laid in bed at night, replaying a conversation you had 6 hours ago, rewording what you said, imagining what you should have said, even though the other person probably forgot about it before dinner? You're not alone. And what's happening inside your mind in that moment is far more complex than just thinking too much. According to neuroscience, overthinking isn't just a bad habit. It's a deeply wired neurological pattern, one that involves your brain's threat detection system working overtime, even when there is no real threat present. Psychologists call it rumination, a loop of repetitive, self-focused thought that tricks your brain into believing it's solving a problem, when in reality, it's just circling the same thought over and over again with no exit. And if you've ever felt trapped inside your own head, unable to make a decision, unable to relax, unable to just stop thinking, science has a fascinating explanation for why. It starts with a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning, decision-making, and predicting outcomes. In most people, this region activates when a real decision needs to be made. But in chronic overthinkers, this area is almost always switched on. It's scanning, evaluating, preparing for scenarios that may never happen. And here's the surprising part. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a real problem and an imagined one. When you replay an awkward moment from last week, your nervous system responds as if it's happening right now. Your cortisol levels rise. Your muscles tense. Your heart rate shifts. Your body enters a low-grade stress response, all because of a thought. This is why overthinking is so exhausting. It's not just mental, it's physical. Your body is burning energy, fighting a threat that only exists inside your mind. Now layer on top of that something psychologists call intolerance of uncertainty. Most overthinkers aren't afraid of bad outcomes. They're afraid of not knowing what the outcome will be. The uncertainty itself becomes the enemy. So the brain tries to eliminate it the only way it knows how, by thinking more, analyzing more, predicting more. But uncertainty can never be fully eliminated, so the loop never ends. There's also a behavioral conditioning element. Over time, your brain starts to associate overthinking with safety. If you thought through every possibility and nothing bad happened, your subconscious concludes, the thinking protected me. So it does it again and again, until the pattern becomes automatic, a mental reflex you didn't consciously choose. Here's the surprising part. Research suggests that many chronic overthinkers are actually high in intelligence and emotional sensitivity. Their brains process more information per second. They pick up on subtleties that others miss entirely. A shift in someone's tone, a slight change in body language, an unspoken tension in the room. The problem isn't that they think too much. It's that their processing power has no off switch. And this is where it gets layered. On one hand, being an overthinker means you're deeply analytical. You consider consequences. You care about outcomes. You hold yourself and others to a higher standard. In many environments, creative work, strategy, problem solving, this kind of mind is an incredible asset. But on the other hand, this same wiring often traces back to something deeper. Many overthinkers grew up in environments where they had to be hyper-aware, where reading the room wasn't a skill, it was a survival mechanism. Maybe the emotional climate at home was unpredictable. Maybe mistakes were met with harsh reactions. Maybe they learned early on that if I just think hard enough, I can prevent something bad from happening. That belief, planted in childhood, becomes the invisible engine behind the overthinking. It's no longer about the email you sent or the decision you're facing. It's about an old, unresolved need for control in a world that once felt uncontrollable. Neither interpretation makes you flawed. Both simply reveal the depth of how your brain learned to navigate the world. So if you're someone who constantly overthinks, if your mind never seems to rest, if you exhaust yourself before the day even begins, if people tell you to just stop worrying as if it were that simple, hear this clearly. You're not broken. You're not weak. And you're certainly not crazy. Your brain is simply wired to process the world at a deeper level than most people around you. That's not a disorder. That's a difference. And the fact that you're even watching this, trying to understand the pattern rather than ignore it, already tells you something important about who you are. You're not stuck because you're incapable. You're stuck because your mind is trying to protect you using the only strategy it was ever taught.